Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tara Buchler with JBF Consulting. Here at JBF, we help shippers de-risk and accelerate logistics transformation by unifying processes, policies, people, and platforms so their strategy is executable and delivers durable value. I've been in the industry for just over 20 years, with the majority of my time being focused on a variety of roles at logistics software firms. With me from KSAP Technologies, I have Jai Shahpuri. Jai, can you do a quick intro, please?
Thank you, Tara. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. My name is Jai Shahpuri. I lead business development at KSAP Technologies. I have over 25 years of OTM and GTM implementation experience. KSAP is the largest independent SI in the Oracle logistics space. We have well over 250 implementations under our belt. And we work exclusively on the Oracle logistics products. Those are OTM, GTM, and WMS. Which means is we are absolutely the specialists for our customers' logistics needs.
Perfect. Thanks, Jai. Really looking forward to the conversation today. We are going to keep the challenges brief and focus more on what to do next. We'll be talking about unifying planning, routing, maintenance, balancing private fleet with for-hire carrier partners, and ultimately how to avoid deferring high ROI decisions by adding capabilities that help you control costs, support growth through a defensible, data-driven business case. So with that, we'll get into some of the challenges. Here on the screen, you can see some statistics about the rising costs to operate a truck. And this is developed for 2024, and it shows that the break-even rate for 2024 is about 270, just over 270 a mile, and that's a 4% increase from 2023. And you can also see that about 15% of the cost input is attributed to empty miles, and that's actually a 2 percentage point increase from the prior year. So ultimately, you're seeing that there are small percentages in cost input increases, and that's leading to an increase at break-even rates. And those are small percentages, but they're really big dollars at scale. And so there's always this challenge of managing the cost, managing your service, supporting your company's growth. And for the companies that have private or dedicated capacity, it's very capital intensive, but it gives them that control and reliability. Whereas with the for-hire carrier network, you have a lot of price volatility, less certain capacity, but you get some flexibility and scalability. When companies have to blend those two together, that blend really has to be based on daily real world conditions, and it has to be moving at a broader scale with the market, which is challenging. And many of our clients really struggle to evolve a strategy and execution to continuously refine that balance over time. And companies who don't do that pay this do nothing tax. It's very real. And every month of inaction is compounding inefficiencies, and it's adding cost into your fleet and your carrier network while potentially putting service and growth at risk. So ultimately, what we're talking about today is how you can act now to, number one, find that optimal balance within your operating network and operating model, but also better prepare yourself for a market swing, which we don't always know when it will be here, but it will be here. It's cyclical, it will happen. And those disruptive events that have become part of our new normal. So with that, Jai, let's get specific and talk about strategies to address the challenges. What are you seeing with your clients, and what are you talking to your clients about with this challenge?
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, I think that ATRI study is pretty cool. It tells us where all the costs are going. Right? Some of the costs are unavoidable. Our clients cannot do anything about it. Driver costs, repair costs, insurance costs, all of those are going up. But the one that we want to hone in and talk about is what you mentioned, the 15% that is attributed to empty miles. And the fact that it's increasing, right? You would imagine with the technology that we have these days, the empty miles should be going down. Within the empty miles, sometimes some of the empty miles are unavoidable. You're legitimately moving equipment, you're doing things that you need to run your capacity empty. However, a lot of that is attributed to efficiency, poor efficiency, let's call it wastage. And that's where a lot of our customers are focused on. Business will always push our customers to have infinite capacity, but nobody in the world is willing to pay infinite amount for that, right? So the question is, how do you go about balancing it? And that 15% that is being wasted, or maybe a smaller percentage of that 15% that is actually being wasted, that's where there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained. Companies operate with a very thin margin and in a highly competitive environment. There's always somebody who's better and will do it faster and cheaper than you. So how do you keep up with the competition? And that's where the balance between the third-party carrier, and Tara, you mentioned this, the balance between the third-party carrier capacity and the fleet or dedicated capacity comes into play. How do you balance those, and how do you keep the cost at a reasonable level?
Yeah, and I think that you've got some really good stories to tell from your clients, but also your time working so closely with the Oracle technology about how you can basically start building a fleet aware and network aware optimization layer that looks at your holistic network operating model, policies, and uses some real-time information within your operating ecosystem to drive some competitive advantage back into the business and change your operating model iteratively over time to start finding ways to, again, control costs, manage your service, and refine the value that logistics teams are bringing to the business. So when we think about, how you can do that with technology like Oracle Transportation Management, what are you seeing here? What are some of the benefits that your clients are gaining when they build this network aware optimization model?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pressure is intense enough that gone are the days where companies can operate in a very static model. A static network, daily milk runs, those don't tend to lean themselves to efficiency, and that's where a lot of our customers are moving away from that kind of a setup in their logistics model. I'll give you one story. During COVID, one of our customers, which is actually a manufacturer of critical components that you would need during a pandemic. Think antibacterials, think disinfectants. So they were making a lot of the ingredients for that. And unfortunately, in the middle of a pandemic, a lot of their carriers started rejecting their tenders, sometime at 100% rate. So imagine an essential manufacturer in the middle of a pandemic, they were not able to ship their goods. What they had to do, and had no choice just to get the product out the door, was go to the spot market and pay sometimes 3 or 4 times the cost of their contract rates, right? So they took a big loss there, but they had no choice because of tender rejections, because their carriers decided, oh, I'm going to make more money on the spot market, so I'm going to go over there. So those are the kind of challenges that our customers have to manage and manage those events. However rare those are, there are continuous business disruptions, whether it's geopolitical issues, whether it is network issues, whether it's just good old weather. That's something that our customers have to manage. A couple of components that you already mentioned, right? On the fleet side, a lot of our customers are moving towards a fleet-aware bulk plan, right? When you implement OTM Fleet, OTM has this functionality called Fleet-Aware Bulk Plan, where it can actually look at your entire network, look at your fleet and your capacity of the fleet, the availability of the fleet, and the network of the fleet, and then actually run planning based on how it can give your dedicated fleet as much of the business as possible. What that does is it allows you to make your transportation plan in a way that it maximizes your fleet, minimizes third-party carriers. Obviously, that's a cost that you want to minimize as much as possible. But then there are also many other benefits, right? Driver satisfaction is one big one, right? Accurate driver pay, making sure that the driver gets home every evening, and then compliance issues, right? HOS, hours of service, and reporting. All of those are bundled into the way the fleet module within OTM operates and allows you to maximize your fleet capacity. So having OTM as the backbone of your logistics offering, of your logistics network, is a very critical thing. And that's something that we are seeing a lot of our customers looking at.
I really love that because, as you alluded to earlier, there's this belief that having a very fixed fleet network leads to driver satisfaction, lowers driver attrition, can still be cost beneficial. But I think you're saying that there's no zero-sum game here. You can still go to a more dynamic routing model, keep your high driver satisfaction by ensuring your drivers still are getting home at night, are still running, similar territories and routes, but you're able to balance, really finding that balance with making real-time data-driven decisions without just having a fixed network. So it feels like it's the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And in fact, on that, I have a funny anecdote. It's a very recent story. Literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, a customer reached out to me. This is a customer that had recently implemented Fleet, and he and I were chatting, and I was like, how's the implementation going, or how has it been since you implemented Fleet? And he's like, well, the drivers are not happy.
Oh,
And I was a little concerned. I was like, oh, what happened? This is something that we did in part of course, to make sure that driver satisfaction stays as high. He's like, well, for the first time in their careers at my client, they now actually have to work a full day's job. They used to do 4 or 5 stops, and the rest of the time was spent in the back room playing poker. And these guys are salary employees, and they didn't really care how much loads they were running. And now
right.
suddenly they're being loaded up to 10, maybe 12 stops a day, still getting home, still staying compliant, but now they're actually working a full day's worth of work. So that was a funny story to me that it kind of goes both ways, but that also points to how much of the efficiency, how much of those fixed costs of that network was being wasted just sitting around because you couldn't plan effectively. And now suddenly you may have, if not doubled, at least improved or increased your capacity by 60, 70, 80%. So that was a really cool story to hear. That was a very recent thing within the last 3 or 4 weeks that I heard the customer say.
Yeah, pretty impressive ROI, I'm sure. And it also leads me to another question. And you mentioned this earlier, but I think this also comes out in your story about having more visibility into what's happening within the network at any given time. One of the things that you mentioned is that this isn't just an optimization problem. It's not just a transportation planning problem. It really is a problem that is across the entire network, the shipment life cycle, if you will. And it sounds like the best in class approach is to use Oracle or your TMS as a hub, really the hub of an ecosystem. And the ecosystem is built out of various other pieces of software, data sources, ways to interact with drivers, carriers, etc., and really make your TMS the hub of decision making. But it requires a lot of input and data to be able to know what's really happening and then use that information in a meaningful way to help, again, manage costs, drive service, etc. So talk about what you're seeing your clients do in terms of building an ecosystem that supports not just the fleet management, but really the whole operating.
Exactly. I think ecosystem is the perfect word, right? None of our customers treat a TMS implementation, an OTM implementation, with or without fleet. They never treat it as a standalone thing. You should not, in this day and age, treat any of the applications as a standalone thing. The analogy that I very often use with my customers is you're effectively getting an organ transplant, a kidney or a new heart or a new lung. None of those are going to operate on their own. They need an entire network, an entire ecosystem to function well. So let's talk a little bit about the components of that ecosystem, right? You want dynamic routing, you want dynamic assignments, you want your drivers to be fully utilized, you want your equipment to be fully utilized. What enables that, right? You need to be able to integrate to this backbone, the TMS being the backbone of your ecosystem. You need to integrate a lot of data sources, right? Integrations with your in-cab devices. So you have not just information and accurate events about the load, live load happening, live load finished, picked up, delayed, delivered, truck broke down, just to be able to improve all of the workflows. If a carrier is delayed, if a driver is delayed during a delivery, what happens to the next and the next and the next pickup, right? So those are the things that the TMS can dynamically adjust as the real world data is coming in. But for that, you need to have real world data. Mm-hmm. Other big component of that is preventative maintenance, right? Newer vehicles and newer trucks are being built in with a lot of these sensors that can actually proactively give you data about the condition and the maintenance requirements of the truck, so you can actually avoid breakdowns, which tend to be very costly, and actually get the truck into maintenance before something happens. Mm-hmm. But then if you keep going, right, you're looking at a lot of IoT integrations. Specifically, customers in our pharma and food and bev industry, they are very keen on knowing what the pressure, temperature, and other environmental factors was the product kept in as it was moving. One of our big customers is a pharmaceutical company that makes some very specialized products and drugs. And they need to be able to, not just from a regulatory perspective, but also from a product quality perspective, effectiveness perspective, have to be able to track the temperature of the product continuously through the transportation. So having that integrated into your TMS is critical. And when the temperatures go outside of norm, there need to be some notification alerts to see what's going on and whether that product needs to be scrapped. So there's a lot of data sources that are being integrated into the backbone of your transportation network.
Yeah, and I think that those additional sources of data have become more attainable over the past few years, or at least compared to when I first started. Do you think that overall, the additional sources of data and ultimately the accuracy and timeliness of data that powers the backbone, the TMS, has that ecosystem really improved over time?
The answer is yes and no. External sources of data, for example, the risk data, traffic data, weather patterns. There's a lot of third-party carriers, third-party providers that actually have very, very good quality data, and they're continuously improving it. We'll talk about AI a little bit, but there's a lot of AI components that are being built into these technologies that are improving real-time access to data and also predictive data, right? The weather is going to be bad on such and such day when your shipment is en route through this area. So that's really critical. Part of that is also big companies like Project 44 and 4Kite. They're actually cleaning up a lot of the carrier data because they integrate with carrier data for carriers for real-time tracking, and they're actually churning it through some of their AI models to clean up a lot of data, remove duplicates, add in gaps if a carrier is not actually reporting data on time. So there's a lot of improvement happening on the data sources externally. Where we see some stumbling, this is probably not the data that you and I are talking about and thinking about right now, but the master data that drives everything, we're still not seeing as much improvement as we had expected, say 5, 10, 15 years ago. Most customers that we go into, we have to go through this fairly intensive data cleansing exercise. And that old adage, garbage in, garbage out, giggle applies really, really well. If you're providing bad data to the TMS to plan, guess what? Your plan is going to be bad. If you don't have very good dims and weights, right? The most basic thing that a TMS would need to be able to plan shipments well, we're unfortunately not seeing a whole lot of improvement in the last 15, 20 years. The trend has been about the same. So that's where we're hoping that functionalities and technologies like AI can come and help clean up a lot of that data. Another issue that we have, when you have multiple sources of same or similar data, you will get different answers from different sources of data. So again, we're seeing 2 different WMSs reporting 2 different dims and weights for the same product. So that's another one of those issues. Which one do you rely on? So that's where we're hoping that AI can actually come in and help us improve that a little.
Yeah, totally agree with those observations. I feel like external data that's coming from third parties outside the 4 walls of the enterprise definitely getting better. I think the cost to acquire and use that information has somewhat dropped over time. There are some exceptions. Inside the 4 walls of the enterprise, coming out of the ERP or the various systems in that ecosystem, still a lot of issues. And to your point, when our data is not good or we have conflicting sources of data and we're not sure what the source of truth is, I think that can become a limiting factor as we start to not only use the technology we have today, but think to the future and start to think about AI opportunities, whether they're embedded in our solutions, our enterprise solutions, or other things that we build internally. That's going to become a problem very, very quick and be a big limiting factor into the power of AI and the promise of AI. No conversation can pass without thinking about AI, talking about AI. So I overall agree with you. I think AI could be a mechanism to capture data more quickly, more cleanly, put it into decision automation, which is all very good. It's all very promising, a ton of potential. But there can be challenges with that, and we need to start addressing those challenges now. Having said all of that, you are obviously an Oracle expert. What are you seeing from Oracle right now in terms of embedded AI or AI use cases, and what's the value to your clients?
Absolutely. Yeah, Oracle, of course, like any other technology provider, is spending a lot of time, effort, and money into developing their AI capabilities, right? Not just OTM and TMS products, but every product that Oracle makes, they actually have very cool and a very winning strategy that goes across all of their different products.
Mm-hmm.
Why I believe that Oracle has it right, I genuinely believe what they're doing is not just the right way to do it, but also it is a game changer. Whereas some of the competition is focusing on building a lot of out-of-box capabilities and out-of-box agents that our customers can use as is, that also ends up limiting what you can and cannot do with AI in your product. Where Oracle's really focusing on is the agentic AI, but giving our customers the framework and the tools to actually build whatever use case you want.
Mm-hmm.
No technology company in the world will be able to capture every single use case for every single customer all around the world. Giving them the framework and giving them the capabilities, the building blocks to make their own agentic AI is what I think is the winning strategy, and Oracle is pursuing that, and that's I think really cool. The way I look at it for our viewers who are familiar with OTM, the way agents and workflows were when they were released 25 years ago in the OTM product, it's nothing but a fancy if then else statement. If this, then do this, else do that. And what that's allowed is our customers to build millions and hundreds of millions of different permutations and combinations of those agents, whatever works for their business, for their specific needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what Oracle's doing is with their AI agents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, they are building a lot of out-of-box AI capabilities. A lot of those are actually already out in the market, right, in the product. Things like predictive routing, automated routing, predictive analytics on your events coming into OTM. There's a lot of those capabilities that have already been built in. But then they're taking this to this next level using agentic AI, which I genuinely believe is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, love that. I also do like their approach, and we are seeing that from some of the competitors in that space to offer some off-the-shelf capabilities. I think that gives operations teams the ability to start to do proof of concept slowly over time, iteratively, and get comfortable with what these tools are and how they're different from our legacy if-then statement automation. So it's a great approach from those that are looking to get started in a small way while they figure out what their larger opportunities are. And having said that, I think it's a good time to also talk about how do you get there. If you're in the audience and you're thinking, you talked about a lot of great things today, but now what? We like to always coach our clients through starting with your current maturity. Think about your current capabilities. Where do you have strengths? Where do you have weaknesses? Are you well positioned to support your organization's growth? And if not, what's constraining you? And ultimately, that's going to help you identify the gaps where you need to be for cost control, to support growth, to add new capabilities, to differentiate your brand. Those are the types of things that should really drive your strategy and help you identify which of these many opportunities, and of course today was not even an exhaustive list, really matter for you, so you can design a roadmap for adding capability, and you can build a strong business case for getting the investment to pursue it. And it's a really budget conscious environment right now. Talking to all of our clients, there's a heavy focus on making sure investment will have a true ROI. Believable business case aren't really cutting it anymore. It has to be accurate. It has to be evidence-based. And ultimately, that is the type of thing that will survive any scrutiny and help secure funding, and I think position you to deliver some durable value back to the business. Maybe let's talk about how do you build an evidence-based business case. And I think it all comes back to baselining now. I'm sure it's a given that many of us are quantifying our current cost to serve, our current performance, productivity. Do we have perfect shipments? And if so, how many are there? For fleets, as you mentioned earlier, we need to understand our empty miles and our cost inputs and where we have control over those cost inputs and where we don't. And typically using a tool like Oracle's logistics network modeling tool helps us really not just understand the baseline, but model the baseline against policy changes. And you can estimate what policies you can change and the impact before you commit to really moving any large opportunities for continuous improvement forward. And I think that approach also helps you define what KPIs you need to measure and track during and after your go live to really prove that there is value being realized and that you're generating the ROI or the strategic impact to the business. And tune your assumptions, you just keep iterating over time. And the last thing I'll say is all of this is well and good. We've talked a lot about technology and the value of technology, but ultimately technology is only valuable when you align the policies, the processes, the people. The true value is realized through business readiness and change, not just technology. And I think you've offered a lot of examples where those stars have to align, and that's a very intentional practice that people need to put in place. And so there was a lot that we talked about in terms of what we should do to handle some of these challenges. Certainly the market's going to shift and change in ways that we don't necessarily anticipate this year, but this is a great low risk starting point that we talked about today. Current state assessment, KPI baseline, prioritize roadmap, driving some of these operational capabilities forward to better manage your holistic network. And if these themes are resonating and you want to discuss where to start, Jay and I are available. We would love to have you reach out to us with questions or to set up a time to discuss more. Jay, any last thoughts that you want to leave the audience with?
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Building a winning business case is based on accurate analysis. Don't just count on soft benefits. There are definitely hard benefits to be had. And then you need to be very focused on KPI tracking before, during, and after the implementation. That's how you're going to be able to prove that you actually got the benefits that you wanted. Tara, you also touched briefly on L&M, Logistics Network Modeling, another tool within the Oracle Logistics product suite, actually mirrors OTM, and that allows you to model changes in your network and how little changes like adding a new carrier, taking a carrier away can have an impact on your entire network. It's a wonderful tool that allows you to do some real world modeling to see exactly what's going to happen based on your data. Another very, very cool product that maybe we can spend another session talking about specifically about L&M and its benefits.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is, that's not necessarily a once a year exercise, right? It's continuous tuning, continuous evaluation, challenge your assumptions, tweak your policies. It's something that is highly integrated with the TMS platform. And so it's, I would say, somewhat easier to use than most tools. And overall, it fits the theme today, which is you have to manage your business and your strategy and your roadmap for adding capabilities continuously. And it needs to be dynamic, as it can have a lot of influencing factors that are outside of your control, as we mentioned. And our job as logistics practitioners is to control what we can control. And the best way to do that is through data-driven insights, data-driven decision-making. Oracle, of course, has some great tools to help support that operating model.
And Tara, one other very critical part of a winning business case is you don't have to justify spending the entire cost of the implementation upfront. You can always phase out a project within your business case. Let phase one pay for phase two, and phase two pay for phase three. So what that means is, instead of trying to go to your executives with a very large budget and a very large ROI, which is going to get scrutinized very heavily, you can just start with phase one, and then the benefits of that pay for phase two. So never let cost and limited budgets get in the way of getting better and improving and saving costs. That's another critical strategy that can be used to get the benefits that you need.
Absolutely. Every opportunity has to be interrogated for its benefit and its cost. And to your point, I think that it is a winning strategy to put some of those quick wins first and gather your momentum, prove that you can build an accurate business case that does deliver value. And of course, that helps you secure the investment for later phases where you may have some of your larger, more transformative and expensive initiatives. So having said that, Jay, thanks as always for your time, your insights. You shared some very interesting stories today, which I love. And again, if anybody has questions, or if you want to set up a time to map out a path that fits your maturity and your goals, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
It's my pleasure, Tara. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Really enjoyed this conversation.